o'clock.
Yes, they're here. Yep.
Roll call, I see trustee Zerflu, trustee Brendan, President Mansell here. So enough for a quorum. Three, that we would like to have a motion to approve the agenda and approve the previous minutes from the committee meeting of June 6th, 2024.
Move.
Second.
First by Zerflu, second by Grundon. Any discussion?
Why don't you just put consent agenda on there? Technically, we're supposed to have two motions.
Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I did.
Any
it for the
opposed?
second.
No. Hearing none, both pass. Public comments on the agenda. I see Mr. Smith is here. Mr. Hummel, do you have anything for our FHR committee?
Yes, sir. Thank you, though.
Thank you for showing up. Chairman comments, I have none at this time.
We do have Scott Heacock and Scott Harrington on. Just
Oh, that's correct. We have Vanderwalt. Both of them are
both of them are on. Yep.
okay. On Zoom. Anybody else on Zoom?
Nope.
Okay.
Isn't it gonna show up?
No, I had to order a new cord. The cord is no bueno.
You can't feed them to these either.
I could do this.
Okay. Discussion and motion to approve the monthly bills, journal entries from previous month and
So moved.
moved by Zerflu,
Second.
second by Grundon. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing no nay. That passes. We're gonna skip number 8 and go right into 8 and 9, and we're gonna, since Vanderwalt is here, we're going to go right to 10 to talk with them and discuss an action on the DMI demo permit. Dwayne, do you want to start out, or Mr. Harrington?
I'll let the Vanderwalt work on this because I'll start out. We mean the three of us have been working with DMI and trying to get their demo permit together. As I left it with the group, including Joe Moore. Joe Moore is that, and his staff is that don't submit anything to us. They have a full application. Well, we got this and as I read it, I'll let the Scots go through it. And the reason being is they have made some good recommendations on some conditions. So I'd ask the chair if you turn it over to him. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Harrington, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. So we do have a PowerPoint presentation here that Scott will load up. And we're going to kind of tag team different parts of it here. So we'll get that started here.
Can the host of the meeting give me access to share my screen?
We don't have a big screen. We just have it on a laptop. And Mr. Hummel, Mr. Smith, if you want, you can come closer so you can see. If you are interested in what they're doing, I don't want you to be excluded.
Okay, did it work for you, Scott?
Mr. Smith, you can come up to the table.
Yes.
Okay.
Scott, when did you grow the beard?
I've always had the beard.
Yeah, right.
It's just a lot grayer than it used to be.
Is it one of those Madison liberal things?
Oh, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you again, my friend.
Yeah, you too. All right, Scott, let's go into it here.
Yeah, so as Dwayne mentioned, DMI has sent us an application for a demolition permit. They had previously had a permit approved in late 2013, 2014. And I'll let Scott Harrington go over a bit of the history here.
Yeah, so just very briefly, they applied initially for a demo permit that was approved. We did the demo ordinance that you have, we helped create back in, I think, 2009, 2010, because we wanted to protect the village from somebody coming in and just sort of leveling the thing and walking away. And the ordinance that you have really follows the model that's been recommended by the DNR and by a lot of attorneys who work with brownfield sites and closed plant sites. So you have a pretty up-to-date, sophisticated ordinance, and we did a little amendment to it in 2020 to also require a bond, which was something that we didn't initially include. So they submitted a full demo permit application in 2013. That was approved. They actually got the demo started, but then as we know, their demo contractor filed for bankruptcy and walked off the job. And then DMI ended up into a protracted litigation with the demo company's bond company. And that dragged out forever. So in the meantime, the demo permit expired because they stopped work. In 2020, when Dwayne was doing his interim gig the first time, we kind of started down a road of citing them for violations, nuisances, and being, out of compliance with the code, and issued a corrective notice. They did take some additional measures to secure the property, but they didn't continue with the demo, and Boz decided not to continue to pursue that course of action. Why he opted not to, I can't answer. Prior to that, Dana Duncan was sort of heading that charge. And I think once Dana got off the board, Boz just let it go. But in any event, the litigation was finally resolved last year, and DMI notified us late last summer, early last fall, that they intended to go forward with the demolition this year. We've been talking with them about this demo permit since then. And so they submitted the information that you all have just last week. So that's a very brief history of a long sordid tale of the demo permit. So basically, the permit expired. Nick Apps wrote them a letter back in 2020 telling them the permit had expired and that they could not resume demolition activities without applying for a new permit. So the ordinance, was really designed to protect adjacent properties and harmful impacts on public safety during the demolition activities, to preserve taxable value of the property, to make sure that what's left is, developable in a developable condition. And then we added this provision for a performance bond, so that should their demo cease to move forward as it did before, that you would have some recourse to access the bond and complete the work using the bond proceeds, if that's what you decided to do. And so I'll let Scott kind of explain some of the differences between what was submitted in 2014 and what has been submitted now.
Great. So, their general work plan is the same, with the exception of, I would categorize it as it's very narrowed in scope from what it had been previously, for a few reasons I'll go over. So first, DMI no longer owns all the buildings that they did in 2013. So the warehouse and the roller storage and truck repair buildings, those were sold. The computer data center and administrative buildings, those they failed to pay property taxes on and reverted to Wood County. Partly due to that, and partly because the original project partners for Wiscorp, which was a business incubator concept that would have happened in the administrative building and the R&D building, they are no longer planning to pursue that plan, but have stated that they're willing to work with the county and the village on either demolition or donation of that building, or their portion of that building in the future. And lastly, there was a phase 2. You'll see where all the yellow X's are. DMI still owns that property. It was originally planned to be an expansion opportunity for a business park. This 2024 application does not list a phase 2. They're not planning to move forward with that portion of the project at this time. The bulk of the demolition is planned to occur on the paper mill itself. The southern portion of the building is the worst state, so that would be demolished. After that south side is demolished, they would repair the southern wall and renovate the interior systems to make it leasable to new tenants. They've told us that they've already had some interest from potential tenants, so they're actively trying to field offers for folks to fill these spaces. This picture provides a kind of bird's eye view of what that southern wall would look like with those truck access points. For the additional buildings around there that DMI still owns, they're not planning demolition on these, but provided an update on their plans. So for the chip plant, it needs electric service restored, and portions of the floor need to be repoured before it can be leased. The roundhouse is currently being leased to Domtar. The storage tanks are available for use or leasing. And the rail yard, which is where DMI makes most of their money currently on the property, is leased to ERCO. So they put, as part of that lease, they put a lot of investment into the rail yard itself, and they're planning to expand it. Our understanding is, that phase 2 section is likely where that expansion would occur. And as I just mentioned, that 40 acres of vacant land on the west end of the property is no longer proposed for that use at this time, although they still could pursue that at a later date if they chose. The demolition ordinance lists a set of standards for approval. So we've going through those one by one. Consistent with adopted land use plans, we found that standards met. Complying with requirements of the existing zoning district. They're planning manufacturing uses and is currently zone manufacturing. 2, there are some bulk dimensions and setbacks that would need to be accommodated through a PUD, which I'll go over in a little bit, but we find this standard to be met based on the application. It's not in conflict with any historic preservation regulations. Requirements related to erosion and sedimentation. Those would be complied with through additional state and federal permits that they're applying for on a parallel timeline to this local demolition permit. Their application lists that there would be access by emergency vehicles allowed to the buildings. Similar to the erosion point earlier, adverse impacts on nearby property regarding public health, safety, and general welfare. The permit lists their intentions for that, and it would be verified through additional permits that are required through the state and federal levels. We found that it would not impose undue burden on improvements, facilities, or utilities served by the village. So they are intending for this to be served by the village water supply. Following demolition, they're planning to restore the building into a developable ready condition. This helps protect the village's tax base to make sure that they're not just going to come through and demolish a building and remove all the value without there being something there moving forward. And they have stated maintaining the property throughout demolition consistent with applicable codes. And then, Scott, would you like to discuss the development agreement timeline, or would you like me to?
Sure. Well, and so I guess we'll kind of go through this, and then you can come back with any particular questions you have on the demo permit. But there's both an original agreement and a First Amendment with DMI. So the original development agreement was approved in 2014. This was really driven by the idle sites grant that the village received. The village received $1 million from WEDC. Basically went for 3 different projects. One was the reconstruction of Edwards Avenue, including all of the utilities that are within it. That project was completed, I think in like 2016. It also provided funds to repower the site, to take it off the Domtar hydro system and to bring Alliant Energy on. That was done later than that, maybe like 2018, but that was completed. Alliant Energy was paid directly. That money did not go to DMI, but obviously DMI was the beneficiary of that. And then a small portion of the funds went to further evaluating this Wiscorp kind of incubator product development center, and that was completed in 2014. But as a condition of receiving the grant, WEDC required there be a development agreement between the village and DMI. So at that point, other than providing the grant, the village didn't promise DMI anything. There were no TIF funds involved. There was no other incentives or any other things given to DMI as a result of that. At that time, they had agreed to donate the admin building to the village, but the condition was the village would only take it if the village had somebody to immediately give it to. We didn't want the village to end up with that building and then the responsibility for it if the Wiscorp Center didn't work out. And the village applied for a federal grant for the Wiscorp Center and was not successful. So the village did not exercise its option to take control of that building. But the one sort of hook that the village did have via that development agreement was that DMI could not sell any property until they first platted it and rezoned it. And the idea there was that there are several parcels that they own, but they are all random, I guess is the best way to put it. They're all, old meets and bounds descriptions. And the idea was to, kind of put every building on its own site so that it could be sold and used separately. And to have a zoning district that was a little more flexible than strictly manufacturing. So until they completed those two things, they were not allowed to sell any property. So we didn't want them kind of cherry picking off some sites and then leaving the rest in kind of this mess that it's in. In 2017, they came forward and wanting to sell the warehouse and the truck building. And so the village board at that time agreed to allow them to do that, and required then this first amendment to the development agreement, which required DMI to complete the rezoning and replatting process in early 2018. DMI started down that road and submitted applications for both. And a hearing was scheduled before the Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission voted to recommend approval of both of those to the village board. But the village's plan development ordinance requires an accompanying development agreement. So either another amendment to this one or a brand new agreement that would have more detail in it, because the PUD and the plat rely on a lot of internal private infrastructure, the private streets and private water and sewer, private stormwater. And it's important to be sure that those facilities are in place before those parcels get sold or used, that people have legal access. Because, for instance, the truck repair building, the lot that the plat would create for it doesn't actually connect to a public street. It connects to an internal private drive. So we need to be sure that that internal private drive actually exists and is constructed so that anybody using that building would have access to it. A sort of term sheet or general layout of what that development agreement might look like was provided to DMI, but they essentially refused to even kind of discuss it or enter into a new development agreement until their litigation was resolved. So because we never got to the point of having a development agreement with them, we never took the PUD or the rezoning to the village board, because we didn't want the village board to approve part of a package without having the whole thing. So that just kind of died. And I guess you could say technically they're in violation of that agreement because they never finished that process that they were by agreement supposed to have finished in 2018. So in 2024, we're kind of back to that. And as Scott will lay out in a moment, one of our recommendations is that we put them back on a schedule to complete that process, including a development agreement that would, deal with all those issues that I just mentioned in terms of ensuring that that private infrastructure is available, that everybody has legal access to their site, and those types of things. So that's kind of where the development agreement currently sits. And again, brief history of that.
Scott, it's Lon Radke, the chairman. I just have a couple things, before we go too far into this is DMI coming to the board with a demo permit or not? I guess I understand that I was able to read your correspondence. I don't know if the other members here of the committee were, but my understanding is, in talking with Dwayne, you guys have been talking with DMI, and DMI has been kind of, yeah, no, hot, cold, hot, cold. Now my understanding is we told them you're either gonna do something or the village is not going to really be concerned with what they do with their property. And if it goes back to the county and taxes, I guess that would be up to them. We kind of had that discussion as a board and we haven't made any decisions, but do they have a demo permit? And did they bring it? And if not, my thing was reading your correspondence that you're looking at, we would give them a demo permit if they follow certain guidelines that you had placed and what you're talking about. And they're all in the yellow here. And I think each member of the committee has had a chance to read them out. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, so they have submitted an application in a narrative. It's missing a couple of pieces that are covered in our conditions of approval, if you will, that those additional pieces still need to be submitted. But they have submitted an application that is, I don't know, 90% complete, 85% complete. So the next slide that we have are those conditions of approval. And some of those include that missing information plus other things that we want to emphasize to them. What we want to do is put the village in a position that if they find themselves in a similar situation that they did in, basically since 2014, where demo starts and then it stops, that you have more hooks and more latitude to compel performance. Or if the demo's moving forward and they're not complying with other things, then you can threaten to pull the demo permit. So in 2014, we didn't really kind of make all those ties. We kind of sort of had them in the development agreement, but the demo permit was separate. And so here we're trying to kind of tie these two together so that you have more enforcement action than just a zoning violation, but you would have the ability to yank their permit if they fail to comply with these conditions. And so those include, Scott, if you want to go to the next page, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, one thing,
yeah.
So I'm thinking what you're looking for, and I'm prepared to do that, is to make a motion, to give them a permit if they do the following things that you have highlighted in your correspondence. But you say we could pull their permit, but what does that leave us? In the same, we could pull their permit, but then we still have a pile of rubble. I understand we want to work with DMI. My question is DMI going to work with us? And I'm prepared to make a motion tonight to give them a demo permit if they follow the conditions of the ordinance. So we do have some teeth in it. But, as far as the other stuff, like I said, I have read the correspondence. I'm not sure if everybody else has. But what is DMI? Are they working with us, or are they just are we getting played along?
No, I mean, they, my impression is they genuinely want to move forward with the demolition. And, they sort of want to do that with as few encumbrances, if you will, as possible. But everything in this list, are things that either are already required by law or things they have already previously agreed to. So in our opinion, these should not come as any big surprise or be problematic for them to follow, because we've discussed almost everything in here at one time or another. And like I said, these are already either in the development agreement, which is still legally binding, or other ordinance requirements. We're just kind of tying some of those, as I mentioned, to the demo permit, just so that you could, have that teeth to, tell them, hey, if you're not paying your property taxes, you're not paying your water bill, we can yank your demo permit. And that would be costly for them because they have a contract, with the demo contractor. So it would have repercussions on their part if you did threaten to pull their permit. I agree, it's really not in anybody's interest to stop the demo again. But once they're kind of in, they're kind of all in. And so you're threatening or you're actually pulling their permit would be problematic for them, and I would think something they would try very hard to avoid.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm willing to move along with that. And I understand, I see your presentation, but I've read the correspondence. Unless the other members want to go through the presentation, that's up to Trustee Zerflu and Trustee Grundon and President Mansell. But I'm willing to go with that, to do that under that they would follow the conditions that were allowed that you guys have already discussed. And my other thing is, my understanding is DMI doesn't even have a contractor yet that they've named to do the demolition. So, I mean, that would be one of the conditions, that they would give us a name of the contractor that's going to do the demolition.
Right, and that's that third bullet there, that provide the verification of the specs from the contractor. So yeah, they have told us who they're going to work with. I can't remember the name offhand, but I can.
American Demo.
What is it?
American Demo.
American Demo, but we have yet to see evidence of a signed contract. The other thing that we've done here is, to kind of put you last in line. So before your permit would be issued, they would need to show you they have the permit from the DNR, at least before they start the demolition of the seawall area, that they have the permit from FERC, that they have the bond. So, you would not issue, the village would not issue this demo permit until they provide evidence of every single one of these conditions to Dwayne's satisfaction. And only then would you issue the permit, and then only then could they get their own demo permit from the state. So we really wanted you to be, let's say last in line, where they have to provide evidence of all of this before they can do anything.
Okay, yeah, I understand, and I'm willing to take that motion to the village board as a whole and have discussion on that at the board meeting come up on next Tuesday. And unless Trustee Zerflu or Trustee Grundon have other questions, I do understand what's going on with it.
How much more of a presentation is there?
2 more slides, just basically going over all the conditions that we'd recommend.
I would like to hear that. I
Okay.
haven't been
You didn't
privy
read
to
the-
any of this.
I didn't know if you got the correspondence, you must not have.
No.
Okay.
So to go over them quickly, there's a lot of conditions that we're attaching, like Scott said, largely to verify that the claims that they make, they follow through on, and that they're mean what they say. The first bucket is additional documentation, so an updated survey map of the property, seeing how they plan to divide the different put buildings on their own parcels, an updated project schedule, so the village would have an understanding of when different things are expected to happen. verification of demolition specifications from the contractor, to make sure that they have signed a contract, and also so the village can understand better, different erosion or, dust and how they're going to deal with those sorts of things. Is going to happen. Proof of bond, listing the village as a beneficiary. As Scott mentioned, this would give the village recourse for if the same thing happened where demolition stops. The village could claim that bond to be able to finish the demolition on their own if they so chose. Providing proof of the FERC and DNR permits, or the last under that. Other conditions are requiring them move forward with the plating, PUD, and development agreement amendment. And giving them until the end of the year to do those things. And then lastly, complying with their existing obligations, so maintaining the entire property consistent with local, state, and federal codes. Complying with the development agreement and the First Amendment, which is a legal agreement, so they are supposed to already be doing this, but this ties into demo permit. And full and timely payment of property taxes and water and sewer charges. Any additional questions?
So the agreement, are there gonna be trigger points, and what will the action be if they're not, like, say they don't pay their water bill or their taxes? What is gonna be the immediate response so that we're not back where we've been over and over?
Pull their demo permit. And that's supposedly going to, my understanding, is that's the only leverage we have, or if we're bonded, then we could probably go after part of that money that they ended up getting from their contractor when they were bonded.
The first step, if we got, they did the conditions and agreed to these conditions, we have it in place. For some reason, they don't pay the property taxes, or they don't pay the water and sewer bill. The first thing that Ben and I've done before, you go on your red tag or you shut the project down. That's pulling the permit, which is something that they don't want to happen if they put all this investment time in it. So basically, I like this last one in here because Diane has been dealing with, we've seen where property tax hasn't been paid, and we've seen where sewer and water bills haven't been paid. And we're saying in front of you right in this part, this is part of your permit, this is one of the conditions. So we're showing them that we know how you operate, we're making this part of the condition.
Do we know what the revenue has been from the rent on the rail yard all of these years?
No, that's between ERCO and DMI. We don't know that.
Well, we have had pieces of that information. And I just wonder over the time of this agreement, how much have they benefited that they're pocketing and not reinvesting?
I can't give you that answer.
Forever. This is their little sugar pie, and they don't care about tearing anything down. These people have been not pleasant to work with. July of 2017, my first month, second month of being president, Luann Martinson and I went down and met with them and promised pie in the sky. And none of it's happened. Why do you think they couldn't do this because the contractors walked out on them? I don't think that's the whole story. They ran out of salvageable stuff that make money off. So therefore they stopped. Can I prove that? No. But why else would they have quit demolition? And they have us right where I better not say it that way, where we want the building off and clean up the property, but we can't really do nothing to them anyway. Joe Moore's always got a song and dance. I like the guy.
And well, like I said before, I'm willing to put a motion out there in good faith that if they meet our conditions, we'll give them a demo permit. But I'm not willing to keep getting drug along. We started talking about 2017, where they had all these plans and drug along. There's a point in time we need to say, either you do it or you don't. In good faith, I'm willing to put a motion out, and I'll put that motion out that we grant them a demo permit under the condition that they meet the commission, the rules set forth by Vanderwalt in the village for that permit. If they do not, we do not issue them the permit. So I would like to put that motion out. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I will vote for your motion, Mr. Chairman, just to get it to the board. But it's gonna take a near act of heaven to get me to vote for anything in their favor, because we've had it shoved down our throat for all these years.
Understandably so. I'm doing it kind of in a good faith thing, saying that the village still is
There's no
reaching
good-
our hand out to
There's
help
no
them.
good faith left. They've come back and
I
come
know.
back and come back. But what are our options?
Right. So with that, any other discussion? Hearing none, I say that we, in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion will go in front of the board.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Scott, I want to thank you for all these years of your level-headedness and your, I wished I had the peaceful demeanor when you deal with people like this that you do, but maybe it's because of what I did for 37 years in town, I don't have that. But on a serious note, buddy, thank you for everything you've done, and everything that Vanderwal's done for the village has been worth every penny we've paid you. And I just want that on public record.
Well, yeah, thank you. Well, we're hoping that I don't know, the third time is the charm here. So DMI has been invited to the board meeting, next week. So if you have questions for them, I assume they will be there virtually. We haven't shared these conditions with them yet because we wanted to make sure that you all were in agreement with them. And if you had wanted to add or subtract anything, we didn't want to confuse the issue, but we will forward this to them, or Dwayne will, and we'll see if there's any dispute. If there is, then the board can kind of resolve that at the meeting. Hopefully they will accept these and move on. As I said, nothing here is new. But yeah, you never quite know where Joe Moore is, and I guess we'll find out.
Well, it's probably a good thing. I'll be 132 miles to the north up in Saint Germain next week. And if I remote in, I'm sure Madam President will have her finger on the button to anytime. So,
All right, well, we'll be there as well to answer any questions that the other board members may have. So have a wonderful 4th, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, thanks,
Thank
Scott.
you. You
go
too.
home and
Take care.
Since we still have a little time that you're gonna be here, trustee Zerflu, I would want to go to the discussion on number 9, discuss and possible action on village administrator position.
I do have insight, so you can know, I do have in your packet number 9, we were talking last minute, I followed the minutes, Chair. And I was looking for all pros and cons. I did get one put together. It's for the first one, FTE administrator, economic development, planning, zoning, and I had in there hard to find a person, a small community. I gave a pay. The next page behind it, I did the pros and cons when I went through today. And I'll go through them real quickly for you so you understand that. And of course, I call it CEO, chief executive officer, with complete control of if you had the pros of this, if you had this type of position, person, place, okay? It's if, and these are the pros. Can control day-to-day operation, minimum board involvement. Working administrator will hold 3 or 4 job description, administrator, economic development director, planning and zoning director, grant writing, and human resources. Those are the areas that I think as me being interim and is trying to fill those spots. And if you in the past, you had a working administrator when you first started out with Joe Terry, and when you brought other people on, and I think duties kind of slipped where we're coming. Even when I was here interim, I didn't do all the duties. The cons, let me be honest with you, looking for someone that kind of person, a salary between 90K and 10K. Just to attract candidates, because I've been watching the applications with the company I work with and some I've done myself. May find an individual with 1 or 2 qualifications for the above job duties. And I know when you have another one, the remaining job duties will be learned on job. That's a fact because of the size of our community. Too small of a community for a person to stay any longer than 2 years. And they have that reason it's 2 years, the Wisconsin Management Association, that's quite a requirement. What W is Wisconsin City County Management Association. In the ethics law of those groups, that's what's minimum requires, 2 years. You will find, and I don't want to be negative, you have a small community like Port, they'll come in, get educated, and then they move on. And the other one, the candidates look at Port as a step, I just said that, for next career. And I also identify this, with the existing staff, will the existing staff accept a full-time FHR-IT? That's why I'm saying is, they've been with one, but without one for some times, in and out, have taken over some of the, and during that period of time, they've taken, and even with some people here, they've taken over duties of a full-time CEO. Past CEOs have gone and come and gone. With little team effort, teamwork as a working administrator. And that's nothing negative with anybody. It's just that because of where you have been over the last, no, whether it's 6 years or 7 years. It's tough. I feel, I'm in here helping you out, but it's tough seeing a small community and you look for a CEO and you don't have that stability. And that's the cons with a full-time. I just wanted to put that out there. So you had a document. Some of you may or may not agree with my pros and cons, but that's what I want to tell you on that. If you're looking at a full-time, trying to cover all those duties. Any questions?
Well, I guess, the thing that I'm looking at is, I'll just put it out there, and I've had some discussion with Dwayne on it, is a public works director coordinator. And one of the reasons I'm saying that, we have somebody in-house that's been working close with Dwayne, and because Dwayne's only here 2 days a week. But I think we need to bring it to the board as a whole and have a discussion. But my thing is a public works director coordinator. We could keep Dwayne on as consultant. If that person had questions, he's worked tight with Dwayne, and I'm talking about our public works director that's in there. Economically, I'm just going to tell you that, if we're looking at a full-time village administrator, we're going over the reports that I read financially, we are not going to be able to afford a full-time administrator at 100,000 plus benefits. That's going to be it's dollars and cents. I mean, we've talked about the growth here. We've tried to DMI, we're looking at other developments, Nepco Lake, but right now with the way the budget's set, we just would not be able to do that unless, I guess, we would decide to go to a referendum, and we just had a referendum. So that's discussion that can be brought up. What I am looking at doing, and after talking with Dwayne, is recommending that I'll make a motion that we would go with a public works / coordinator position, and the details of that position would have to be worked out in a job description, and we would have to meet and decide what we're going to pay. Right now, when Dwayne's not here, Kim, Diane, and Ben are doing a lot of some of the administrative duties with Dwayne as consulting. And when Dwayne comes, he moves with Vanderwalt and some of the other motions of the wheels that are turning. That's just the fact of the way the village is being ran. Am I correct, Dwayne?
Right now it is. That's what you got.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your motion is basically just to kick it to the board to discuss it? Because I don't know the legalities on this one, whether we as a committee can say, move that type of a motion, this is what we're gonna do to the board. I don't know.
Right. I think it is just to discuss it so the whole board can, Dwayne's gonna leave here. You made a note in December. Yeah, Betsy?
I think what we can do is bring it to the board for discussion, see, what I would like to do is see where everybody else on the board feels. Then we can maybe do a committee of the whole with it, or FHR can work on a job description for this position. Because if we make this position, other pieces are gonna have to change.
Yeah.
So it's not just, here's this, it's, okay, now who's in the public works thing that's gonna have to take over a little bit more duties, who, like Diane and Kim are gonna have to take over a little bit more duties. So I think we have to have a holistic, I almost think this should really be a committee of the whole meeting versus a,
I would not be comfortable with the motion coming out of FHR for that. I think that there has to be a bigger picture because it's gonna be huge and we're all gonna be accountable for it.
Okay, and I think we can bring it up for a possible discussion then at the board meeting.
Mhm.
But I think we have to have this discussion now because
yes,
before we know it, budget time's gonna come and things are gonna be moving, how fast time moves.
yeah,
And if we don't have something in place where we have a road to go down, I think we're gonna be standing here.
Well, and in that, I agree, we need to get to work on that. But I won't be able to support a motion coming out, but I think we could have a consensus. Do we get a committee of the whole schedule going? Do we?
Do we do that instead of the board meeting then, or what, I guess, Madam President? Or doing?
If you're, and this is very complicated, if you're looking at one of the alternatives, which is in your, working with the existing staff, it's gonna take some time to put an organization together to do that. And to do that, I think it's good that you work as a community as a whole, and you all hear at the same time.
mhm,
But at the same time, putting that together is gonna take time, not just doing something, you're gonna have to get involved with existing staff that's here right now, knowing what's gonna occur for job description. What kind of, who's gonna do what and where. That's all gonna be laid out, and I think I like to see staff present something to you in that portion. And then you kick it to committee as a whole, and you may not like certain pieces of it. But you're getting the input, not just from one person, you're getting input from the team that's gotta make this happen. That's how I like to approach it. I know it's gonna take a little time, but I think two things, you can do it in your committee here, I think you do it at committee as a whole, and I think you do it as a committee as a whole, you're gonna hear it all at one time. That's what I think you're looking at.
I think if we whittle down, like, and we already have, right, taken some things off, so I think that's the biggest piece is what are we going for? And maybe bring the top 2 or 3 out of this committee to the committee of the whole, because that way it's not, staff isn't working on a whole list of different things, right? Like which ones make sense, which ones don't, and then they can focus on those 1, 2, or 3 things versus 6, 7, or 8.
So do we want to discuss it as the village board meeting, or do we want to make a meeting of the committee of the whole at some point in a month or two?
We can discuss it at the village board meeting.
Well, there might be 4 members on the village board that say, no, we don't need a committee of the whole meeting.
Right.
Because we're just gonna continue as is.
So why don't we discuss it? We'll put it on for discussion at the meeting and feel out how everybody feels.
Yeah, and then we can
we'll-
still whittle it down from the board meeting too. Like if you have all, that's very hypothetical, but if you have all people saying, I don't want whichever one it is out, okay, well, that's one less. But I do think we can concentrate on some of those things, but then yeah, the bigger board is gonna have to chime in here.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dwayne alluded to what you have to do first, in my humble opinion. If you're gonna look at an administrative coordinator, and our county has never had an administrator, we've always had a coordinator. And the department heads, he has certain authority he can do as himself. For instance, when the refrigeration went out up at Norwood and all the money that we had lost on drugs and that, he has a set limit of dollars in emergencies that he can respond to. And the board every year reviews them and tweaks them here and there. I think we need to, and I hate to keep mentioning his name, but I think when we talk about the structure of it, we should have Lance Plummel come down here, who's our county administrative coordinator, just to let you know what it means to be an administrative, the department heads. How is the inner working with that stuff to go, which could be part of an committee of the whole meeting too.
I think that's a great idea because
Mhm.
it's working for the county on a much larger scale. So if it's working on a larger scale for the county and they're making it work, I think that bringing the county coordinator or administrator and telling us how we can make it work for our community is a great idea.
Mhm.
and do it as a committee of the whole. We'll set that meeting up. We'll
Yeah.
see how, we'll have a little discussion at the board meeting, see how everybody else feels about it. And then set up a committee of the whole.
Maybe we have a preliminary meeting of a guy like Lance, Dwayne, and you, just to see what's all involved. You guys might come out of there and say, what the heck?
Right. So we can
Yeah.
set that up. I'll
Yeah.
make contact with Mr. Plummo and see what his schedule is.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Okay, I know we're out of organization here, but, and you have to leave.
Well, if I get out of here at 6 sharp, so if I,
Okay.
in the middle of a discussion, but I might say something that I want to hang around with, so I don't know what to do.
The last one is discussion, stages of employee performance evaluations.
I want to report that I have completed the employee evaluations, who the administrator supervisors. I have completed them. They're in, a couple employees have them in their hands already, some have returned them. And I also got an email out to the supervisors that it's time to at least give a month of July. I know it's real busy for Ben, but July to finish up their staff. So that's in the process. And I knew that. I think having that done is also, I wrote things in there, depends how the staff goes. So staff knows that we may be looking at different things. So that's in their evaluation, so they're aware of it. So that's where we're at. I now have the Scott and Ben need to do the staff they have. And the fire chief, I wrote him up, a new fire chief. I presented one to him, showing him what has been done in the past. I couldn't do evaluation, just started, but I gave him the form so he understands it, what he's got to be doing in the year. And he have to do the same thing with each one of his firefighters, is just get them warm up to understand what that process is.
I thought you wrote them up already.
I know, that's what I.
No.
No, I drafted it. I drafted a canned one, but I showed them the job
Okay,
description and then the open, somebody has to follow.
Any questions, Trustee Grundon, Trustee Zerflo? Thanks for getting that on its way and moving that along. Old business.
Yeah, I turned 74 yesterday.
Happy
Ooh,
birthday.
Happy birthday.
That's old.
That's right, you're a July boy, baby.
74 wax.
What?
Uh,
See, no,
I'll
I
skip
put
that,
it
I'll
on,
retract.
I put it on voice control and I'm wearing them because now I can either go left and it just tunes you right out.
Discussion on new business, any new business? Correspondence received. Diane,
None
did
for
we
this
have any
committee.
correspondence?
Diane might have.
Received that you were, no.
Not for this committee.
Diane, did you have anything reference the budget or bills or anything, concerns that you'd like to bring up? Okay,
What I did, and I'm sorry, we're not there yet.
the agenda items for the next meeting. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I wanted to put them out there so we can start working on these things, and it's just basically is, I know Diane does it every month. Every month she puts all the things together for the department heads to look at. And I think what I'm looking at there is just maybe sit down with each one and see where we're sitting as a whole. I've already talked to Diane. We have some areas that we're not expending. We have some of them in different areas, but we need to make sure who's where so we can understand how we end up the year. And a schedule for a 2025 budget. There's things that discussing and right already, the administrative position, all this stuff is gonna be part of the next budget. And I just thought it was important that when I came here last year, I was under the wire and so was Diane. I don't think we did. Diane did an excellent job. I just didn't have a chance to work with her. I put a lot of pressure on her. Don't want to do it. I like to be part of the process with her this time.
Okay, yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to put on there too was Vanderwall discussion on them, and maybe we need to, if you see what we're spending, if you're watching the bills, maybe we need to decide exactly how much we're going to use of the TIF money and budget them. And we're, as a village of the whole, again, too, for a village board, where do we want to sit and how much do we want to spend? Other than that, anything else for the next agenda?
I'll try and chime in next Tuesday.
Okay, and then next meeting will be August 8th. This 5 p.m. is still, is that working for you, Tiara?
Mhm.
August 8th.
Yeah, time just flies.
Ooh, yeah. Make that.
Without objection, I will call the board, the FHR meeting tournament at
Can I
five
quote you that you're,
fifty-five.
can I
p.m.
quote you that you're running against Betsy? Because you said I'll declare the board.
Well,